Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. My name's Dualta, and in this podcast series, I will be interviewing investors, advisors, entrepreneurs, and recruiters who are based all over the world. Today, I'm going to be speaking to an expat in the Sydney market. Her name is Kylie Clarke, and she was a great guest. We went through her journey from starting at what sounds like the School of Hard Knocks, S3 in 2008, to launching our own recruitment business in Sydney, focused on the testing world with a bit of a focus on getting women into tech. So she was a great guest, and she's an ex-$1 million biller, so obviously knows her stuff. She's made a few career choices that were a bit questionable, and we discussed some of that and had a great laugh about it. Really liked that she could laugh at herself. Even though she is really successful, she could admit that, okay, maybe that wasn't the best call. But she's, for somebody who is still quite young, she's been in the industry for 10 years, she's got a successful business, and she's at that amazing crossroads where she could go and hire a bunch of people and scale out, or she could just carry on having a very successful lifestyle recruitment business where, she's able to make quite a good living from what she does. So it's really interesting to, see what drives somebody like that. And some interesting bits that we touched upon in the podcast was when she was a high performer with a boutique recruitment firm, like how come they weren't able to retain her? Could they have done more? She was kind of hesitant to speak about it, but I surmised a few things within the conversation. So yeah, really great guest, and love hearing about people setting up recruitment companies. And I suppose we don't have enough female recruitment leaders coming on the podcast. I've had a few, but probably not as much as the men. So look, really enjoyed it, and I think she's got a very good future ahead of her. Definitely somebody to watch, and I think as soon as she finds that formula for working herself out of her business and hiring some good people and teaching them the way that she works, she could be on to a real winner. All right, over to Kylie. Hi Kylie, how are you?
Hello.
You made it into the app at last.
I made it in.
Made it in.
First test passed.
Awesome. You've a wonderful voice for this. Has anybody ever told you that?
Oh, compliments already. So early
Yeah,
on.
I know. Don't worry, we'll bring you into deep water as this goes on. So welcome to Recruiter Startup Podcast. Really happy to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Brought you on because I think I get a lot of big shots on this podcast. And not that you're not a big shot, but you're in an interesting position where you've been in business for a while. You could scale. You could carry on as you are. There's a couple of things I would love to get into with regards. You recruit a lot for women in the tech space in Sydney. I'd like to know your thoughts on that and thoughts on being a female recruiter in a very male-dominated environment. I don't know if you managed to see that video that was out on LinkedIn yesterday by a company about the young lads all getting on a jet.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Okay.
No.
So there's a company in London called Hay Associates. So not Hayes, but Hay Associates, and it kind of looks a bit like a parody, but it's not. So the opening scene, they're outside the office, they go in, there's lads high-fiving, and Wolf of Wall Street kind of carry on, ping pong tables and all the rest, everybody's on the phone, and it looks really slick and all the rest, but as you look closer, there's no women on the floor, and then there's all these lads in kind of like shorts and like shoes and no socks, and
shades and walking towards a private jet, and they get on a private jet. And so the thought process, I think, was like, this is celebrating our culture, because these are the top performers, and it's cool to work here and all the rest. But the hate they've got online is something I've never seen.
Oh no.
So one side of the camp says, well, it's a bunch of young lads. Maybe that's what your culture should be. Like, maybe that Wolf of Wall Street thing suits you, and that's fine. And more power to you. And then the other side is, well, you're not making an effort to employ anybody else, and as a result, it's a bad reflection on you and our industry as a whole. I'm not sure which camp I sit in. I think there's a place for everybody out there, but I think it's probably an area you've given a bit more thought to, as you've targeted a bit of your business around it.
Yeah. So I guess around the tech space, specifically around the tech space, that's where obviously my business recruits within, and specifically within engineering. So a lot of companies in Sydney at the moment CIOs have got a lot of KPIs and obviously targets to get more gender balance across their technology teams, not just across the business in entirety. And I run a meetup with regards to that, to raising more awareness, and go to a lot of meetups in that space. So I think that there is a huge divide, I guess, but without an actual concerted effort about trying to change things, I guess it just becomes one of those things that people just talk about.
And we will jump into that a bit more. And there's a few other things I'm really keen to get into. But tell us, where did it all begin for you in recruitment? What you're a bit younger than me, actually. I hate that when I interview people and they're like a good bit younger and they're successful and stuff. It doesn't work for me.
Oh, hey, it's starting to happen to me now, right? So it happens to the best of us.
So talk to me. What was your first job in recruitment? Why'd you get into it?
S3. I started off at S3 for the brand Real Resourcing at the time.
All right. So you started in 2008. So at a KPA house, essentially. What was that like?
Really full on now. Really full on then. I think from all accounts, it's the cultures that changed quite a lot. But when I was there, it was.
Give me a horror story. Come on, give us a horror story.
Yeah. Oh.
I've heard Hayes back in the day. Well, even back 6 years ago, if you didn't make your BD calls, they took your chair away. Was there any of that?
Oh. That's just putting it lightly.
Go on. Give us some details. Take me back in time to that moment.
Oh, I've got PTSD even thinking about it. Because some of them weren't really very positive, so I'm just trying to think of the one that's got more humour around it.
Give me the horror story. Give me the horror story.
Feel sorry for Kylie show. I think probably the thing that I still hold a bit of a grudge for was there was this competition that they ran that if you did 10 placements in a month, you would get a Rolex. And I had only been in the business like 5 months, and I did 10 placements in a month. And I was winning all these awards, like high performing rookie, fastest to 10 out, fastest to 20 out, all that sort of stuff. And so, I mean, at that sort of stage as well, I was pretty young, and I was getting like loads of recognition, and that was awesome. And I was loving life, and I had loads of people in the business messaging me, like saying, how have you got there, and what are you gonna, let's send us pictures of your Rolex when you get it. And I got pulled into the office by my boss and told, look, just so you know, the Rolex competition's actually ended now, and we don't do that. And I was like, well, okay, but you've been telling me all month. Come on, Kylie, I want to walk you down there, buy you the Rolex. That's what you've been, telling me that I'm going to do. And I actually did 12 in 1 month. And he was like, oh, you've done enough deals. You can buy your own Rolex. So and I was like, I'm going to tell everyone. When people ask me to send them photos, I'm going to tell them. And he was like, no, you're not going to tell anyone. So I had to lie. So I think still to this day, I'm like scarred.
Get it
I
all
walk
off your
past
chest.
Rolex
What else
and
do you
kind
have for
of
us?
like, yeah. No, I think that's enough now.
Are you going to start crying? You're not going to start crying. That's not going to be good for women if you start crying on the podcast.
I crossed the road outside a Rolex store now and just gnarl at it like.
Lovely. All right. All right. Okay. So you got to the magic point when I love to headhunt people. A year and 3 months. So I'll do the year and then I'll do another quarter and, I'll see if the culture's changed or, and somebody taps you on the shoulder. Is this what happened?
Well, actually, my office closed down and they relocated to Birmingham. Oh. So I was like, do you want to go to Birmingham? Yeah, not so much. Nothing against Birmingham, but I just didn't really fancy it. I lived in Nottingham. So next
do Nottingham people look down their nose on the Brummies at all?
Oh, I don't think so. I'm originally from London.
Because we're in the south of England and we look down our nose on everybody down here.
You sound Australian now.
And I'm Irish, so I don't really get that privilege, but those around me.
Yeah, no, I don't think there was really any of that. I just didn't fancy Birmingham.
That's fine.
So went to Syntax, had a little bit of time there as just a small specialist boutique company, and ran an account. Wow, you're testing me now.
No, that's okay.
All the time.
The next thing you did was you went to Australia. So what was that like then? Because I can tell you what it was like because I did the same move in the same year. How did you find it?
I loved it.
You're still there, right?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. So I moved from I got moved over by Hydrogen. So I worked for Hydrogen in London and then they moved me over to the Sydney office. So very, very, obviously that was a great opportunity for me. The office was really buzzing, doing really
Were you getting
well.
a working from home or working away from home allowance?
Yes, I was getting LAFA.
Living away from home, sorry. Yeah. How nice was that, right?
They were.
I've mentioned it a couple of times on the podcast.
Really great.
But essentially, it was a tax saving where you got like the price of your apartment off your salary, essentially, really, wasn't it?
Oh, so like I think it's like you almost like double really what your salary was because you just got huge tax savings. But yeah, it was essentially that. Just anyone that was English had LAFA, and I don't think any of us really appreciate just how amazing it was until they stopped it.
No. But like I remember when they stopped it, I went in and demanded that they made up the difference in my salary increase. That's how spoiled we were.
Yeah, I think everyone did that, or just got new jobs.
Yeah, amazing. So you went to Sydney. Did you go alone? Did you have friends when you went there?
No, I went out on my own, and I knew one person. Yeah, that lived in Australia at the time.
And did you? You've obviously got this Australian accent down the road, but at the start,
no.
Tell me the crack? Were you just around all expats? Did you find that you were hanging out with a lot of people from your work? That although like your social life was good, was it quite evolved around your work?
Yeah, I mean, I think every single recruiter, most recruiters in Sydney, in Australia, are English. So you do spend a lot of time with expats. And our office, I think, was predominantly made up of expats, like 90%. So I quickly made, quite a big group of friends out here, and most of them are English.
Are they still there? Or have a lot of them gone home?
Yeah, most of them are here. I think I've actually only got one like couple friends that went back.
Because I was in Perth on the boom, and like as soon as that boom ended, we were all on the boat straight out of there. But I think in a cool city, it's slightly different. You know, people tend to put down more roots, don't they? No offense to Perth.
Yeah, maybe it's an age thing. Yeah, and also an economy. Well, I guess it's a market thing as well. Like the market's really gone from strength to strength out here.
So you did a bit of time in hydrogen because you love a new job. Every year you nearly get a new job.
I'm not over the last 5. The 5 have been pretty consistent.
Here I can't get over this. You went to Manpower. You couldn't pay me money to even look at Manpower. What in your head? What part of you thought, oh, this is going to be good for my personal brand? What was going through your mind? Like,
wow, say what it really, don't hold back. Oh, I've got to be honest. We so at Hydrogen, as much as I had an amazing time in London, loved the office there, and I loved moving to Sydney with the business. But I think that year killed me. So doing business as a recruiter in Sydney, you do have to operate differently. You do have to face,
it's slower, more face to face.
It's a lot more relationship driven.
It's very hard to explain that to UK recruiters without them experiencing it. They come over and they smash it for a while, and then everybody in Sydney hates them, and they have to kind of go, oh no.
I know, right? So it and very much so, and I think there was an adaptation really that Hydrogen needed to do at the time to learn their market, and they didn't.
Did Hydrogen kind of almost try and put in like an S3 type style of work? Yeah,
exactly that. But it was set up predominantly. A lot of the leaders at Hydrogen are ex-S3, right? So that kind of culture drifted over, and I think I was just exhausted after that year because everything, it was completely cold. I got moved desks 5 times.
Yeah.
in a year. So yeah, I think at that
you were kind of like the crash test dummy, right?
Yeah.
And then you were burnt out, and somebody said, "Here is a key account place where you just come in and meet the odd client, and everything's going to be fine, like and it's all perfect." And you joined Manpower. You have no self-respect. I'm losing respect for you right now. I can't believe you did that.
Oh my god. So I'd
like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody at Manpower. I've never met a good recruiter from there. So if I'm wrong, come tell me, because you tell me.
There were some amazing leaders in that business. Amazing
leaders. Yeah, it's because they don't do any work. Because they also doing is managing massive accounts.
Enormous accounts, like massive. So yeah, I mean, I'm really thankful for it because it gave me a view of recruitment that I never knew existed. I'd always come from that heavy KPI environment, building cold desks. So seeing these huge RPOs and MSPs and learning, just even learning about what a SOP was.
What's a SOP?
Pretty much a self-operating procedure.
Well, how does the self-operating procedure work? Come on, drop some knowledge on us here now.
So it was about, we had to put SOPs together for the account so that if we got hit by a bus, that somebody who had never worked on the account could pick up the SOP and could run the business, could run your
okay,
account.
so just like documenting the process.
Yeah, heavy documenting. Yeah, so it was very process driven. A lot of payroll. I remember manually having to go through pages and pages of people's timesheets and matching up people's salaries to do payroll. That was obviously something I'm really good at as a salesperson,
Yeah.
That level of detail.
Sure, yeah. So before we all fall asleep about your time in Manpower doing administration, you only lasted a year again. You love a new job. What was the crack? Wait, what brought you on to the next thing?
I got made redundant. I know. Oh, seriously, this is quite a depressing phone call. It's like the graveyard of my career. They did a massive restructure. It made me redundant. But then, to be honest,
Of
I'm
course, you
so
got
happy.
made redundant. You joined a shit business, like.
Oh, it was the best day. I literally booked a flight to Kuala Lumpur and Borneo, and just that day, and just left. It was like, I'm out.
All right. So,
yeah,
you managed to get quite a nice gig after that, and you ended up staying for a little while. Well, was this kind of where your career started to accelerate?
So I was there. Yeah, I was there just under 4 years.
Under 4 years. That's not bad though. In recruitment, like in recruitment terms, that's a long stint, right?
Yeah. Well, apparently by my standards.
Yeah, listen. It is what it is. I mean, it's only your 5th job in 5 years, but like, well, let's not judge.
What have I signed up to here? What have I done?
Walk us through this one though. What was this?
It was amazing. I had a great time, and had some great achievements. So I worked for Attribute for 4 years. I had an incredible boss, a great mentor. When I walked in that office, there was one recruiter and I think 2 op staff. It was a tiny little office. With one little window. It was a startup. And I don't want to talk about leaving, but when I left 4 years later, because that's apparently what I do, we had 15 people in the office, very, very successful organization, on multiple panels. Yeah, it was an incredible journey. So I went from principal consultant to state manager.
Amazing. How many people were in the company when you left? Billers.
I think we had 8.
Okay. All right. So you got to see really how a boutique goes from start to that point of critical mass where they're getting nearly to 10 people, right? And you got to kind of be along that journey. This is where things get a bit interesting. At what point, when you're in that, do you go, I could be on this train with you guys for the next period, or I could do my own thing?
Yeah. So I'd built $1 million a few times over. I'd built $1 million
$1 million a year.
Yeah, $1 million. Well, so not in my first year. It was like year 3 and 4. So I think year 3 was 1.4, and year 4 was $1 million.
What's that, like 5-6 placements a month, or are you working more senior stuff? Like, that's an incredible amount of money to be billing.
Thank you.
Well, was a mixture of contracts and abuse on this, so probably have to be nice to you. But that is incredible. I'm like that's amazing. Sorry, go on.
Thank you very much. So it was a combination between contracts and perm, spread across multiple industries, multiple accounts.
All right.
I can't give it all away.
but okay. I can probably jump in and see from your LinkedIn. You were quite specific in testing. You stayed within the one vertical. Obviously, you won accounts and you build up the contract book over time, but you really became the person in that space if you're building that number across Sydney. How did you compete with the big boys? I've done a little bit of testing recruitment, and I wouldn't want to do it again. It's fast moving. Hey, it's a hard one to kind of decipher, where to spend your time and all the rest. Like, what was it that you had that work against, say, Hayes and Walters and Page and like all the other boutique recruitment firms that were scaling between 12 and 16?
Yeah, so probably the first and foremost was the attitude a little bit like yourself, in that no one wanted to touch testing. No one was really interested in it. I remember I was at like Ryan's bar, a good recruitment hangout in Sydney, and someone actually introduced me, say, hey, do you know she's billed $1 million and you'll never know what she's done it's in testing. And then they all laughed. Like genuinely, like, so I think the main thing was that no one was really doing testing.
It's the blue collar of IT recruitment.
Oh, I'm feeling sorry for all my candidates right now.
Help desk level 1 and 2 in testing. That's this is when somebody joins a recruitment company and there's a good strong team, there's where you throw them.
Well, that's what I got at S3. That's what I had all those years ago. So technically, I've done 12 years testing, which not a lot of people have done that, or no one.
I don't know anybody who could do that. You've earned your money. Okay, that's amazing. Okay, talk to me about those late. Like, okay, you're billing $1 million. Are you getting paid properly for it?
Very well. Excellent commission structure. Billing on the first dollar. No threshold.
All right. There must be something that they could have done to retain you as opposed to you going out on your own. There must have been something along the way. And I want to ask this because there'll be a lot of people who could be listening to this and they're at that 5 to 12 mark in terms of their billers, or even up to 10 on their billers, and their biggest hitter, that person, like, how do you keep that person engaged and make sure that they're on the bus and stay on the bus and don't buy their own bus?
Yeah, I think that's the $1 million question. It's going to be so specific to the individual. I guess the main thing is listening. We probably had just reached a point. I had definitely reached a point where I was looking for something more than, because I was being quite a big amount, and I was obviously managing a big team. So I was pretty stretched.
What part of it would you have given up?
Oh, that's really hard because I just had an absolute rock star team. They were all performing incredibly well. I don't think I had a biller on my team that was billing less than $500,000. Everyone was happy, engaged. It was a really good time. So I don't know if I could have given up.
Were you on an equity plan?
No.
That's what they should have done then. If they had said, here's our growth over the next 5 years, you're going to be on it. I've seeked investment. We're going to scale out. We're going to exit at this time, and this is the payout that you'll get if you're along the trade. I bet you would have stayed.
Potentially. And I think that maybe it was a little bit about, where is this next step? Where is this going? Because to keep up that momentum, to keep up those, I bought a house. I'd done some really great things as a result of having some great figures, right? So when I had achieved those sort of personal goals, and I was looking for my next personal goals, or what I was going to need to build and achieve in order to achieve those. And I guess I started to, I couldn't really visualize it where I was.
So the owner should have visualized that for you.
Maybe, but I feel like I don't really want to say anything mean about him because he's just such a great guy.
Yeah, well, I don't know him, so I'm going to play devil's advocate, and you've come on a podcast, so so you're mine. You've
done that a lot already.
Okay, all right. So you've had an amazing experience at Attribute Group, and you've made a bag of cash. Bought a house. Have you got married in this time?
Not yet. I got engaged this year.
So no children. Okay.
No children.
Money's burning a hole in your pocket. You're thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And you decide to set up your own recruitment company. Walk us through that.
Dun, dun, dun.
Walk us through what that meant at the time. Were you worried on your, like, there's some restrictive covenants that you have to be careful of. There's a relationship with the owner of Attribute Group that seems to be important to you that you had to be careful of. But yeah, guide us through that.
Yeah. So I set up in my spare room, and I was planning on taking a trip to Bali and just having a bit of a break in between, one job and then starting the new thing. And I get a phone call from a client, and they're like, "Have you got a new job yet?" No, I'm thinking about setting up on my own actually. And he's like, "I've got 10 exclusive contract roles for you right now. So get a job or get an ABN so that we can do this." So I literally just was like, right, I suppose I better hurry up. So
Okay, so this is
set the business up pretty quick.
So this is really interesting. So most people, when they set up a recruitment business, they go, okay, firstly, I have to strategize about the space I want to get into. Then, we need to get some perm deals in. Ultimately, we'll do a bit of contracting as well. But, obviously the cash flow on that is a challenge. How did you, your path has been has been almost mapped from your reputation. How did you manage to get temp set up in those early days, and how did you fund that?
Yeah. So in those, so I used a company called Airs, which were recommended to me by another friend of mine that had set up a business a year before, and she'd done a heavy amount of contract work. So I use my network hugely to get through any of these kind of problems or doubts or anything that I just thought, okay, how do I do this? How do I execute? I would just pick up the phone. And so she used a company called Airs, and they did all my front office. So they did my contracts, my personal indemnity, personal liability, and workers' comp, like all my insurances.
Okay, so say you bill somebody out at $100 an hour, or $100 an hour.
Yeah.
Let's say they were on 50. How much does Airs take of that?
3% of the day rate.
Oh, really? And of everything, and they cover all the liabilities and all the rest on that.
All the insurance, all of the contracts, all the timesheeting, and they chase invoices.
Oh my God.
Pretty good, right?
Okay. So were you like, this is doable. All I have to do is find more testers. You obviously don't have a database.
No.
But you have a decent network, but still you don't have a team working for you anymore. It's just you. Are you burning the candle trying going through LinkedIn? Are you like, what did you do to invest in the sourcing infrastructure to make sure you're able to get that up and running?
Yeah. So a couple of things. So in those early days, so I filled pretty much all of those roles. They ended up bringing it down to only 8, but to 8. So when I did those, it was good old fashioned getting on LinkedIn, mapping out team, competitors, just doing recruitment 101. And just trying to do everything on a shoestring, really. The moment I got any kind of money coming in, I bought a Seek license. And was able to use the Seek database.
So let's talk about that for a second. Australia is unique when it comes to job board recruitment. It's actually not bad. Like, people do apply on Seek, whereas in the UK, like, job boards are just full of crap candidates. So many rubbish. I found it completely different in Australia. Did you find that as well in terms of using Seek?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, again, it just completely depends on the level. So, and I'm obviously not adding a huge amount of value to my client if I can find somebody that I can just stick an advert out and just get a response through. To be honest with you, it was more about name generation and understanding. For me to be able to go into the Seek database and look at candidates that, say, for example, had similar skill set to what I was looking for, I then it would just give me more knowledge and understanding for places I didn't potentially hadn't known before.
It would have
So,
legacy.
okay,
it would have legacy candidates so that you could use to headhunt as well.
And I can, I did do a pretty good referral program. So I put out quite a lot on LinkedIn that I was buying new iPhones and stuff like that for referrals. So I did a lot of referrals, a lot of placements through referrals. Yeah.
Because you'd spent so much time in this space, that first year, did you need to go out and meet everybody again, or were you able to just kind of go, call them up and say, hey, what do you need? I'm in business. After you were, I take it you had 6 months of kind of going, can't touch any of my old clients.
Yeah, I had 6 months hands off. I had an awkward situation where I had a client recommend me to their vendor, which was awesome. So that was, obviously not part of my hands off because they were a new client, they were a vendor, but because my old client that I was working with at Attribute had recommended me, he said, can you just email me at the current client and then I'll forward the intro onto the onto the vendor. Long story short, but essentially because my email address from Attribute had been cached, when they then sent the invoice, they sent the invoice from the client to my email address at Attribute. So my old boss wasn't massively happy about that. That was probably the slip up that happened. But I guess I was really keen to prove it to myself and to everyone. I can be a little bit stubborn at times, and I think I was really quite keen on proving it to myself. Like I said, and others, that I didn't have to use my old network and that I could form new relationships.
Yeah, very good. So you got off to a really good start. You've been in business for 2.5 years. Is it just you?
It's just me now.
Did you hire anybody?
I did manage it with my partner for a year.
Did you kill him?
I think he nearly killed me.
What? Why did he nearly kill you? Why are you so difficult?
Oh,
you said it, not me.
Yeah, it's true. So we had a great time. We really did. We achieved some great things together. It just changes the dinner conversation a little bit when you manage a company with your partner. And as much as I'm passionate about what I do, I probably don't want to be talking about it every minute of every day, 7 days a week, with absolutely no escapism. So, and it's also, the highs are really high and the lows are really low. So when you have bad times and there's just no escapism, and you've had 2 dropouts maybe that Friday, and now you're supposed to be going out for a nice romantic meal on a Saturday night, there's there's a potential a little bit of air there. So it's nice to just not have that anymore.
Yeah, but from a business perspective, were you bringing different things to the table?
Yes. So James is pretty technical, and he codes. So he was way better at finding developers than I am. So I was doing more business development, and James was doing more focused on delivery.
Okay, all right. And when he left, was there a bit of a gap in terms of what you were doing? Like, were you able to fill that?
Yeah, so I guess I just went a little bit more back to focusing more on QA, and streamlined the business that way, and obviously doing more in that women in tech space. So I guess the gap has just been about, with any business, something changes, just got to change the sales, right? So I was just honest with my clients, and I've got some really good mates that have got recruitment companies that specialize in development, and I point them their way, and I focus on QA.
Yeah, that makes sense. Why haven't you hired anybody? And what's holding you back? Like, what's holding you back from doing that?
So I have gone out and thought about it a few times. I've gone out and interviewed. Obviously, everyone does do it at one stage, otherwise no one would have teams. Man, it's difficult. It's so difficult. I found, I don't know if it's, and then I spoke to some rec-to-recs about their advice on those first few hires, and I think that there's fear on both sides, right? So there's a huge amount of trust and fear from the owner, but there's also a huge amount of fear coming from the recruiter, because ultimately it's about what people want, and it's such a good recruitment in such a good recruitment market. The economy is absolutely outstanding. People are generally not moving around all that much at the moment, especially if they think if they're onto a good thing, they've got a hot desk. And I guess the desire to join a really small company at those grassroots levels, I guess I don't think that it's a smaller pond to fish from. So again, if that's something that I decide that I want to do, I'd have to change the sales, I guess.
And what about bringing somebody in from scratch? That must have been the other option, like going to a couple of universities and figuring out who the bright girl that can't sit still is at the back of the class. Is there like how do you feel about that? And I ask this because I don't have it all figured out, far from it, and I'm in the process of hiring at the moment, and I don't know if I'm ready to sit in an office with a couple of grads and guide them through their day and give them the attention that they need. I have a lot of stuff going on, like with kids and stuff at the moment, so I feel it wouldn't be fair on them right now at this point. Is there something there as well in that you like your own space and your own way of doing things?
Well, so I guess to go back to a little bit of an example that kind of answers that question, and again, it was family, so probably not a great example, but I won a huge piece of business and I really needed some more delivery, so I brought my sister on, and was trained her, and was hoping that we could get to a point where we were going to be able to do some delivery. And it was an amazing eye-opener again of just how much we do without realizing that how second nature it all is. We just forget, I think, especially when you've been in it a long time.
It comes down to your SOP though, doesn't it? See, I'm learning. I'm picking this up. Eh?
It's all down to that SOP. So a grads is an enormous amount of work, and hats off to people that do it. Like I look back on my times of S3, and as much as I've scarred by the Rolex experience, I am incredibly thankful for the training that I went through in that, and they weren't shy of spending some money on training, right? And
I had an amazing experience as well. I had a manager in Robert Walters and Jodie Gillespie, and she put me through the ringer for 3 years, but late evenings, still there, still kind of showing me, do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that, and even to a point when I was wrecking her head, still just consistent, always at it, always relentless. And to be able to give that amount of focus to somebody, it's a big commitment, isn't it?
It is a big commitment, and I'm not necessarily saying that that's not something that I would do or consider later down the path. It's probably just not right for me right now.
But you owe it to women everywhere, because there's not enough women in IT recruitment in Sydney, isn't that right?
There is hardly any women in IT recruitment.
Talk to me about that. Why is that? Why? What? Like, because I'll tell you this: if I have a girl that wants to, or a woman, sorry if I'm being sexist there, we have to be very careful. Be very careful these days. If they want to go to Australia, they've got 3 years experience and a degree, they'll get hired before the man will. So what's the problem here? Why isn't there more women in IT recruitment in Australia or in Sydney?
Did you say that if you sent 3 candidates and one was a female and 2 were men, the woman would get 100%. Hired first?
Yeah, anywhere in the world.
Interesting.
Yeah, the demand for female hires is through the roof, because people are conscious that there's too many lads in IT recruitment, and there is a push. Like it's like any owner I know isn't hiring men because they want to hire men. Like it's just that there isn't enough women who want to do it, really.
I wonder if you took off all the names and you put them as all as Bobs, who they would actually want to interview.
The biggest biller.
Or all as Susans.
The biggest biller with the most consistent background. But if one's a woman, the other's a man, they go for the woman. Right now, they would anyway. Just in mostly, unless there was somebody standout. But what I get whenever I have a good female candidate is, hey, do you have any more like this? This is part of our strategy for this year. We're trying to balance out the room here. Everybody says that, and it's not. I don't feel that they're just saying it for the sake of it. But maybe you do. You've been in a leadership position in IT recruitment in Sydney. So what do you like? What walk me through that?
I've been in a leadership position in Sydney, and walk me through
why you think there is, like, firstly, it seems to be a male dominated recruitment market, a male dominated IT sector. Is that, do you think that there's a line, first of all, or is there a particular reason, or is it just there's a lot of boys clubs out there where women would kind of feel, oh, I'm not sure I want to be part of that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that there definitely are a lot of boys' clubs. I think I've worked in all of them.
We've gone through it, you have. I bet you Manpower wasn't a boys' club.
Oh, what have I done? No, it wasn't actually. No, and my two female leaders were exceptional. So I to be honest with you, I don't have the answers to that. Recruitment can be incredibly aggressive, and I guess it's not appealing to a lot of women.
Do you think it's recruitment or IT recruitment? Like, do you think maybe there's, well, traditionally anyway,
like pharmaceuticals and healthcare? I think I've just got a few more girlfriends that are still in that space.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, well, why are you asking me the question? You're the rec to rec. You would know. You would have this data.
You're the gender expert. You're passionate about connecting women in technology, championing.
Yes, in technology, not in recruitment. Come on, you can read.
Okay, all right. Talk to me about tech in general. Then, why is there a gender misbalance?
Okay, so I've read a lot about this, and been to a lot of meetups, and we've got a lot of debates, and ultimately, so Canva have just written a paper about it, which is absolutely amazing, and ultimately it's looking at that whole life cycle of when women are entering the tech space, and then when they're leaving, and ultimately, as far as I can see it, there's not a big enough pipeline of women in tech coming through, and then 51% of the women that are in the tech space then leave. And these women don't leave and then just don't work. These women leave and go to other industries. So as far as I can see it, we've got a really small pipeline of women in technology coming through, and then the ones that are, we're ultimately ruining the experience for half of them. And we're losing half of them by the time they're 42. So, which is then a complete explanation as to why then there's such a lack of female leaders in the tech space. My business just sponsored the Women in Technology conference alongside Amazon and Roshin Parks, who's the CTO of Gumtree, did a talk, and I know Roshin well. We've done like a meetup together, and she was in Australia. She went back to Ireland for a bit, and then she came back to Australia, and she felt that she'd sort of lost her network, and so she wanted to meet up with some fellow CTOs, and she thought, oh, I'll go on LinkedIn and I'll find some, and she got to like page, I can't remember the exact number, but I think it was like page 27 before she found a female CTO. And so she's really at the moment on a mission to really change that ratio, and is doing an amazing job. But she also said, that's fine. I'm going to create a meetup, and I'll get loads of female CTOs to come along, and then we'll, be more united. And then she realised that actually there's none to invite.
Wow.
So she really decided that she wanted to do something about that.
Yeah, it's an interesting space. Did you read James Damore's thing for Google? Do you know who he is?
I don't, unfortunately.
He's the guy that was fired by Google for going into the reasons behind it. He basically kind of said a lot of men are probably more aligned to tech jobs than women. And he went into quite a bit of detail, and then he came with the solutions of how he would go about changing it. Google fired him, so it's a big thing last year. When we look at,
I know the story. I didn't know his name.
No. Well, when we look at our industry, you see a lot of, like, I see a lot of women leaving agency to go to internal more than men. Do you think that's down to the aggressiveness of agencies, or is there? Do you, like, what would you do to change that?
Oh, I don't know if that's a sweeping generalization though, because I know a lot of guys that are in internal, and I'd say that a lot.
I'm pretty good at sweeping generalizations.
Heads of internal. I feel like you are.
Yeah,
So yeah, I would say that my major stakeholders that are in the talent acquisition function are male.
Really? Okay.
So
But is that just because there's more men in recruitment in general?
Potentially. I mean, it's a very interesting topic, but I'll be honest with you, I'm definitely not a subject matter expert in it. And I guess my focus has been more on about the gender balance shortlist within the tech space.
No.
Yeah. Not that I don't want to support fellow female recruiters. I most certainly do. And I'm very interested in it, but I guess you've raised it to my attention even more. But it's not something I guess I have actively spent a lot of time in.
So
looking at or thinking about.
You're at this point now where you've got a profitable business, good contract book. Kind of thinking you might hire somebody. Kind of wondering, like, if you could fast forward 5 years, what would you like to have achieved?
So interestingly that you've just said this, because I've just actually done a 5-year personal plan.
We didn't talk about this beforehand. So that sounds like I've just prepped you for a question.
Oh, do you think? Oh, sorry, no, I most certainly did not. That's why I thought it was really interesting that you said that. So I did a 5-year personal plan, and I guess that's where I'm at in my business and trying to work out how that then feeds into my personal goals. I think certainly for myself, I've spent a lot of my career thinking just about my targets and thinking about what I'm going to hit financially, and not thinking about necessarily how that feeds into my personal life. And that's definitely something, again, I've been able to take more control of and spend more time aligning my business with my own personal goals, I guess, because I have the flexibility and freedom to be able to do that.
When I look at that as well, I always feel like, do I have a business, or am I just a really highly paid freelancer? Because that's the difference. Is between one and the other is having staff and being able to manage yourself out of the process. And there comes a time when you have to make that call. Is that part of that 5-year plan?
Yeah, so I guess exactly what you just said. I've had that same thought process a lot of the time. Part of that 5-year plan, I'm still working that out. Like I said, I've just done my personal one, so now I'm looking at what the goals are for the business to align with that. I really enjoyed running that conference. I really enjoy getting involved in these meetups and doing these branding pieces, and some strategy pieces with some clients as well. I've really enjoyed doing that. So I'm not really necessarily thinking about exiting in 5 years. That's not part of the plan. Hey, maybe there's a podcast part 2.
Well, I hope so. Well, we will leave it there, Kylie. Thank you so much for coming on. And I love the story about the Rolex, and you know, you've bounced around before you became super successful. Then you had the stones to go and do it for yourself. And yeah, it sounds like you've got a great wee business there. And yeah, we'll catch up with you in the future and hear about how you've scaled.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Well, a massive thank you to Kylie for coming on the podcast. Really enjoyed that she can have a bit of a laugh at herself and doesn't get too defensive about things, kind of just rolls with the punches and is quite confident that she has a great business on her hands now. She's been $1 million biller in the past, and she's just at that interesting point where she could continue on and have a great lifestyle business, or she could scale a business. What would you do? I'm at a bit of a crossroads myself, and you know, you get used to working your own hours and having your own processes and not having to worry about somebody else's future. It's just you. And I can imagine it's a big call for her to hire somebody, and Sydney's a tough market to find good people. It's quite unique like that. Australians don't really encourage people to get into the recruitment sector. It's a middle class economy, and I'll be honest, the Australians look down their nose a little bit on it, and that's why there are so many expat UK recruiters in the market. But the recent changes over there have made it really hard to employ UK recruiters. So they can still do it, but they have to pay them a fortune now. And when you're a small business like Kylie, you don't really want to have that outlay of sponsoring somebody. So when the local market isn't really giving you what you need, and it costs a fortune to hire somebody from overseas, it's a tough one to scale a business. It'll be interesting to see what she does. She's definitely onto something though. Great wee business, knows her candidates, has all that sewn up. You know, she's probably been through quite a bit in the first 2 years of her business, and she's just coming into her own with it now. So yeah, I'm excited for it. And I love hearing about people who walk away from big contract books and have the balls to set up on their own and risk it all. And that's what she's done. So massive thank you for her for coming on, and for just being so open and honest and articulate. And we wish her the best for the future.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.